And we are live. That right there is the type of enthusiasm that you should have if you are doing YouTube MMA, particularly, especially when there's an exciting fight that's about to happen, especially with Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall. Now, full disclosure, is that fight signed, sealed, and delivered? Probably not, but there's a lot of plausible reasons to believe there is a possibility of that happening. And primarily because of this exchange that Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones had going on. Let me show you right now.
Both massive guys, but I'll take that.
What's he having?
Eggs. Boiled eggs.
Here we go.
Just saying hello. Just saying hello.
Maybe one day. So, just based off with Jon Jones, what's he having?
Eggs. Boiled eggs. Look at that. Look at that lunchbox there. You're good.
Chilled as a cucumber, aren't you?
We're not going to start fighting at an event, are we? Well, I hope not. It was good. It was all right, mate. I enjoyed it.
That was the first time you met him, huh?
First time I met him. He's nowhere near as big as I thought. I thought he was a lot taller, but I guess when you're fighting light heavyweights your full career and you're 6'4", you look really tall. But I'm a full-grown heavyweight, aren't I? There's no chance he's as big as me. Nowhere near as big as me. But size doesn't matter, really. We were both massive guys, but I'll take that one. I think I beat him, definitely. You know, you stink them. Don't you?
So, what do you make of that particular exchange? Now, I believe that particular exchange took place somewhere in England. And I don't know what Jon Jones was doing there. Perhaps maybe he had some sort of promo going on. I know that he was coming from the Saudi fight in with Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua, I believe. I don't know if he was in that fight. Yeah, I believe he was there to show up for that one. So obviously, if you're in Saudi Arabia, UK and England are not too far away. So he went and paid a little visit, probably to do some promo, but that's about it. But on any regard, one of the things that I think is really important about this fight, obviously, is that we have to find out who is the best heavyweight in the world. And with that, there is no better opportunity now that Francis Ngannou, the lineal heavyweight champion of the UFC, just got slept by Anthony Joshua. So why is this particular fight really important to have now more than ever? Because even though that boxing match with Francis Ngannou is not an MMA fight, it still makes him look insignificant in the heavyweights division of the architecture that's happening right now. It really does. Let me explain why. Okay, for one, the perception of the fans is as important as the competitive architecture that is going on. And let me explain what I mean by that. Okay, so for example, obviously, losing a boxing match doesn't constitute you losing your championship belt. And even though Francis Ngannou has already been stripped of his title, well, Jon Jones sort of made a great account of himself of finishing Cyril Gane a whole lot earlier than Francis Ngannou, struggling against him in 5 rounds. Now, you can toss it up to the fact that, well, he was injured. Supposedly, he had some knee problems, which he did take the surgery on, and only to come back and eventually fight Tyson Fury. Nonetheless, this is an important fight for not just Jon Jones, not just for Tom Aspinall, but for the UFC in general. Because when Francis left, it really made the UFC look very bad. Okay? Because now you don't have a lineal champion, and oftentimes what the UFC wants to do the legend who's been defending the title for a long time loses to an up-and-comer, right? And then oftentimes what they want to do is sort of promote that up-and-comer or that new champion that just defeated, let's say, Chris Weidman against Anderson Silva. Speaking of which, Chris Weidman is going to be in a fight tonight, I believe. Let's take a look at what is the fights that we have going on tonight right here. Let's take a look at this. Let's see here. So, okay, he's not in this card. And by the way, I did a preview for this particular card right here. I urge you guys to take a look at it. So he's not in this card. Let's see. He's not in next week's card, but he will be in the card of March 30th with Aaron Blanchfield taking on Manun Ferrut against Bruno Silva. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is that after Chris Weidman had beaten Anderson Silva, he went on this world tour of ESPN, of all these different media outlets, but it never really translated, right? But nonetheless, because of that, the middleweight division moved on. That was until George St. Pierre came into the picture. And by the way, I've told you guys several times when George St. Pierre fought Johnny Hendricks, what happened? The UFC was highly disappointed that George St. Pierre did not lose because he was already planning on retiring. And then on top of that, they were urging him to come back because the fight was so close. And he left. Then he came back one weight class up, takes the belt from Michael Bisping, only to go and mess up. There we go. Sorry about that. Had a little mic issue there for a second. There we go. All right. So we got the mic issue back on. So yeah, so George St. Pierre basically destroyed an entire division, 2 divisions in a span of 4 years, just based on winning and leaving, right? Well, that's sort of what happened with Francis Ngannou. He won and he left, and then boxed Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua in the process. Looked great against Tyson Fury and looked horrible against Anthony Joshua. I mean, it was literally a no contest, right? There was nothing that Francis Ngannou could do, or so it seems, against Anthony Joshua. And in the process, the fight looked exactly the way it did. But once again, it made him look very bad, very, very bad in the process. So that's really all there is to that. So now they have to go and have this fight because the UFC needs it. Let's watch this interaction again. Some volume here.
How are you? Good, man. Nice to meet you too. I would hope so. I would hope so. All the best. All the best. Sure. Yeah. Let's get it. Say something. How are you? Good, man.
So what I like about this particular exchange right here, if you notice with John Jones, right? He looks at him directly in his eye, right? And why is that significant? Because the eyes don't lie, right? They often say that. And sometimes you sort of get a glimpse into what you are facing and what type of person you're dealing with. With John Jones, you notice there is an absolute confidence in the way that he's approaching this. Not only that, he's looking at Tom Aspinall eye to eye, chin to chin. And then if you notice, he also tells Tom Aspinall to not touch his shoulder as a way of establishing dominance. And I'm going to explain to you what that means as we move on to this video.
Nice to meet you too.
And see right there, softly sort of pushes his hand out of the way, saying, hey, you know what? Don't touch me. Don't touch me, bro. establishing dominance, but also sort of establishing a precedent. And what do I mean by that? Establishing a precedent. In other words, what he's trying to do here is show John Jones, like, hey, look, man, I'm not here to fight you. I'm just here to be friendly with you. But it doesn't say much because, once again, you don't know what Tom Aspinall is going to do on the day of the fight. I think a lot of people really put a lot of stock into face-offs or meetings or things of that nature. There's a lot of deceptive things that really goes into that. A lot of deceptive things. You just don't know until the day of the fight. Let me explain some deceptive things that are going on in that matter, right? Sometimes some people don't want to show their cards. Sometimes some people really show their cards, and then some people fake whatever they have going on in the process.
I would hope so. I would hope so. All the best. All the best. Sure. Yeah. Let's get it. Play something.
Yep. So that right there is John Jones and Tom Aspinall in a nutshell, right? So does this fight need to happen? I would say so, that, yeah, it definitely needs to happen, right? Because we need to find out. Tom, for himself, he needs to find out. And that's really all there is to it, right? Like, let me pull up a video here. I'm going to pull up a video that I did regarding certain matters at hand, right? Okay, so 4 months ago, I did this video on Francis Ngannou needs the Saudis to make the John Jones fight. Now, do we need Francis Ngannou now that all of that happened? Maybe not, but let's take a look at here. Here we go. I'm going to play this video for you guys. I'm going to react to my own
question. Would you build a website for a major brand with more than 200 million users using?
And it just put an entire halt to this. So immediately, straight away, I saw this tweet by John Jones, and it just put an entire halt to this party that Tom Aspinall has going on. Now, over the years, every time there is a dominant champion, whether that was Anderson Silva, whether that was GSP, or whether that was even GSP or BJ Penn at his prime, everyone always asks, well, who is the next guy that's going to topple this guy? All of a sudden, Anderson Silva gets toppled by none other than Chris Weidman. After that, everybody is asking, who is the next guy that's going to topple Chris Weidman? And who is it? It's none other than Luke Rockhold, short-lived. And then here comes Michael Bisping, who was a much more, I guess, how do I say this, marketable champion. Obviously, he talked the trash. He was great on the mic. And on top of that, there wasn't really a lot of substance in terms of dominant champions. And then all of a sudden, one of the greatest of all time, which was GSP, coming from 170, he moves up and takes on Michael Bisping, which, again, short-lived. He lets that title go. And then all of a sudden, Israel Adesanya picks up the pieces of the belt and defends it since then, up until, of course, he took on Alex Pereira. And then after Alex Pereira, then it was him again. Now it's on to Sean Strickland. So there's always some guy. But we're talking about the heavyweight division, right? Now, John Jones is the man right now, but unproven as a heavyweight. Well proven as a 205er, and that's important to understand. Here we have John Jones mentioning something to the effect of, I faced the absolute toughest competition this world had to offer for 15 years now. He did that. There's no doubt about that. During camp for a title defense, I sustained a major injury that required surgery for the first time in my career. That's also true. John Jones has never had any mishaps in terms of his injury, other than right now. Now, that could be for multitudes of reasons. Obviously, the reasons why he had to skip out on some fights earlier in his career was because of some legal troubles that he had going on or performance enhancement issues, which we later found out was false because, well, let's just say USADA wasn't doing their job properly, were they? So he's right about that. Now he goes on to say, now I have newcomers requesting that I get my championship stripped. 0 wins over legends. When he's talking about Aspinall, he's right about that. There's not a legend. But now notice that John Jones is sort of changing his mind a little bit in what he wants to do against Tom Aspinall, right? I think there is a shift going on with John Jones wanting to fight Tom Aspinall, and primarily because I think a lot of people are sort of calling John Jones a coward for not getting this fight done. And rightfully so, because he is the interim champion, Tom Aspinall. But either way, it's not going to look good for John Jones's legacy if he doesn't take on Tom Aspinall. And maybe perhaps we'll just end up forgetting, but it's hard to forget when we know that Tom Aspinall is the current interim champion of this era right now. Legend that Aspinall took on other than Pitbull, Andre Arlovsky, and that's it. But other than that, he doesn't really have all the biggest names in the world. So 0 title defenses, already thinking you can call the shots to Dana. That's hilarious. In my 15-year career, I've seen so many guys who are supposed to be the next big thing. There's only been one John Jones, and never forget that. There's only one Johnny Bones Jones. There's only one Johnny Bones Jones. How about that? Listen, John Jones is the symbol of American martial arts supremacy, if not the symbol of American military around the world, right? He symbolizes all that. He also symbolizes literally everything that is wrong with America, but is everything that is also great about America. And that's just really comes down to sports and entertainment, which, by the way, John Jones can definitely offer you a whole lot of. Now, here he says, mentioning something to the effect of 0 title defenses, already thinking you can call the shots to Dana. Guess what? Here's the thing about it. If you are famous enough, you can call shots to Dana. Okay? Because how do you think CM Punk was able to get in and fight in the UFC? Now, granted, that was a couple of years before the Fertitta brothers had decided, you know what? We're going to go in here and we're going to, let's say, I don't know, sell our company to a big Hollywood agency, which is Endeavor, the people that currently own it right now. So what did they have to do? They had to bring in CM Punk to make the product even more attractive. If you guys remember, as far back as 2014, that's when they were talking about CM Punk going into the UFC just right after he had finished his WWE stint. So moving on and moving forward from that.
Are there times when you would love to have another address or phone number to use instead of your home address and personal number?
You can call the shots if you have enough money, if you have enough clout, and it doesn't matter about your championships or anything like that, or your title defenses. Now, in John Jones's case, guess what? He can call the shots because he has won all these fights over the years, which, by the way, I've called for John Jones to be stripped of the title because of this one major injury that he has going on. Yeah, so once again, what is changing in John Jones in actually wanting to take this fight on, right? There's a lot of questions to that matter at hand. Now, I want to be 100% transparent on why I was compelled to say that. Because the truth of the matter is, we don't know if John Jones is ever going to come back. And even with this response that John Jones has made, you also have to take into consideration that maybe the only fight that he has left is against Stipe. There is no guarantee that John Jones is going to go in there and step in and fight the toughest heavyweights in the world and potentially risk his, risk his legacy. Now, you know who has a very similar, a very, very similar thing that is going on with this particular concept right now is Canelo, right? Because I've mentioned before that I compare David Benavidez to Tom Aspinall because he's literally an interim champion in the shadows of an undisputed champion currently right now in this moment of time. So I'm going to read to you. You guys have seen me basically do a live, or I'm sorry, like a little segment with my man Zane Musa boxing, right? I'm going to read to you what he said on his social media today to sort of put things in perspective, right? And this kind of correlates with Canelo and with Tom Aspinall and the situation they have going on with David Benavidez, meaning that I'm comparing John Jones to Canelo, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to read to you what my man Zane here wrote not too long ago, which was today. Let me see here. What did he write about Canelo? Did he erase this or no? I don't know. I don't think he did. Hold on a second here. Okay, so I seem to have a trouble finding it, but what I can say about the comments that he had mentioned was something to the effect where, okay, he said something to the effect where, okay, right here. Let me read to you the whole thing that he wrote. So I'm just going to drop my two-piece on the Canelo versus David Benavidez situation. Canelo Alvarez has achieved a lot in his career and has been on top and made the most money and has become one of the highest earning boxers in the last decade, and he's 33. Does he really need to fight a young, hungry 26-year-old in David Benavidez? No, he doesn't. Just look at his resume now. If it was a part of Canelo's team, I would say the same thing. Like, he doesn't need to prove nothing more. He's made history by becoming undisputed at 68. It's a dangerous fight. Yeah, similar to Tom Aspinall being a dangerous fight for John Jones. Even if he beats Benavidez, people would still say he was better than him in the first. So what I'm getting at with this particular topic here at hand is that John Jones now, for whatever reason, feels compelled to wanting to fight Tom Aspinall, right? He has said several times already in the Saudi Arabia interviews that he's willing to fight Tom Aspinall. He's also willing to fight Stipe Miocic. By the way, Stipe is his top priority. Now, there was a moment where he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall, and the reason for that is just he felt that he had already accomplished everything. He's already built a great resume that can ride him off into the sunset without having to worry about anything else. But he feels compelled to wanting to fight Tom Aspinall for whatever reason, and why not? As fans, we love that. So, first place, wow, sounds very familiar, Zane, because guess what? John Jones was to double leg Tom Aspinall to the ground and elbow his head in and cave his head in and knock him out in that first round. This is literally the same thing that they would be saying. So moving on with what Zane was saying, better than him in the first place. But now if he loses, then it would be a huge discredit to what he has already achieved. We'll say now he's a journeyman now for the up-and-coming boxers. And why would he jeopardize that position if he is in right now? Doesn't make sense. He's the cash cow right now. Benavidez, let's keep it 100, hasn't achieved much. Why not go up and wait like Canelo and conquer another division? Canelo has taken up so much challenges in his career. What does Canelo, what Canelo does is up to him. He doesn't owe no one nothing. Still the face of boxing. People can say what they want, but he earned the right to dictate what he wants to do in his career. So you see, there's the similar parallels that you can draw from with John Jones and Canelo Alvarez. Right. So again, that's the reason why I said what I said about John Jones being stripped of the title, because he literally has one fight left, and that's probably going to be against Stipe Miocic. And he's really adamant in fighting him and nobody else. which means that if he does go through with that fight at any circumstances, let's say for whatever reason, Tom Aspinall gets injured from now till then, you got to ask yourself, well, what are they going to do? Right? He's injured and now he can't fight. I'm talking about Tom Aspinall, hypothetically speaking. Now you got to bring in John Jones to fight Stipe Miocic, which is what they were originally going to do in the first place. So now that's going to be his last fight in his career. It's going to be Stipe's last fight in his career because they both don't want to fight anybody else. And again, I'm not speaking for John Jones because he could easily rebuttal me and say, hey, man, as soon as I'm done with this surgery, let's go fight. Let's get Tom Aspinall and fight because I want to prove to the world that I can beat this hype of an Englishman. Because guess what? This is one thing that I've always said about John Jones, right? If John Jones was a British fighter, he would have a whole bunch of people following him from around the world to go watch him fight. Right? You see all these English guys that are like hooligans or whatever, right? Whether they're boxers or MMA fighters, they go out and support these guys and then they travel halfway across the world to go see them do what they do. Just like with Tom Aspinall, he had a whole bunch of guys that came and basically watched his fight within 11 days notice from Great Britain and flew all the way to New York to watch him walk out to Englishman in New York by Sting and to capture the interim championship belt against.
My name is Rachel Nelson. I'm a Term 5 School of Medicine student, and today I'll be visiting the General Hospital as part of my clinical training. These
Sergey Pavlovich. So you don't have that with John Jones. You never had. And by the way, there was a point where people sort of questioned John Jones's ability to sell pay-per-views. So with that in mind, what's the next best thing? You go out and you get yourself a British fighter and have yourself a Ricky Hatton versus Floyd Mayweather situation. A Joe Calzaghe versus Roy Jones Jr. situation. A Joe Calzaghe versus Bernard Hopkins situation. And the list goes on. And all the other UK fighters that Canelo has beaten in the past. That's what John Jones now has ahead of him. Because guess what? Prior to John Jones dominating the world and what we see right now in maybe the post-John Jones world is a group of British fighters from around the world in different organizations dominating the landscape of heavyweight combat sports. They just had a guy named Adams, or this guy Terrell, I believe, in BKFC, which, by the way, I covered with the Mike Perry and the Eddie Alvarez fight. I suggest you guys check out my video on that. It was attached with the Ian Gary, contributed to the lost custody of Neil Magny's children video that I did. I urge you guys to check that out. But in that event, yeah, obviously there was a heavyweight fight in the BKFC, and the heavyweight champion now with BKFC, I believe, is from the UK. So there you go. There's another champion that they have in their ranks. You got Tom Aspinall. Then you have Tyson Fury. And by the way, a lot of these wins are questionable, right? Obviously, Tyson Fury, you question whether he really is the lineal champion of the world after the performance that he had with Francis Ngannou. Okay, a lot of people arguably say that Francis Ngannou won that fight. Same thing with Aspinall. They're saying that, well, he's not really the champion because he never really beat the man. He beat a guy that, yes, was scary to everyone, but in reality, it was really a title eliminator fight. Nonetheless, impressive for what it is because of how Tom marketed his exuberance, and not only that, his excitement for actually winning this title. And not only that, it was a great job on TNT Sports and BT Sport to capture the before and after of that whole situation. They had Nick, Pete, and Adam Cattrall with the little reaction that they had after Tom got the knockout, right? And how happy they looked, which, by the way, many British people that were watching that sort of could relate to that feeling for Tom Aspinall when he won. But nonetheless, the reality is that's what John Jones has waiting in the wings for him. A potential clash with a British champion that is now considered to be the future. But again, we don't know because of the fact that he wants to fight Stipe Miocic, and he feels that that's going to be the last fight of his career. He wants that in his resume. Stipe says the same thing, and people are already rushing to get John Jones out of there. Get him out of the picture because, let's face it, what if Tom Aspinall really can't beat John Jones? That's a reality that a lot of people don't want to swallow for one reason or another. So either way, a couple of things. I urge you guys to take a look at the video that I did with why I felt John Jones needed to be stripped, but also check out a couple of new videos that I had. Ian Gary cause Magny to lose his kids to custody. My man Powhatan says, Desanya. So, yeah, John Jones needs to fight Tom Aspinall. I really think that he's going to look like the absolute biggest coward in the world if he doesn't. And quite frankly, he may also not care. And I'm going to explain why. Because I'm going to tell you, history has a way of really forgetting a lot of people, right? In other words, a lot of people tend to forget that Riddick Bowe had ducked many people in his days, right? If you had remember, he dropped a belt, a WBC belt, all because he didn't want to fight Holyfield or Lennox Lewis or one of those people, right? My man says, where are you from, bro? Ramadan Mubarak. My brother, I am currently in Sacramento, California. Obviously, I grew up in New Jersey, but I am a full-blown Californian. But where I'm from originally, I'm originally from Egypt, my family at least. So I'm of Arabic descent. Let me know where you guys are from. Thank you for tapping in on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So what are some other news that we can take a look at? Because obviously I've really went on with, this whole John Jones story, right? The one thing that I think we can really take from this particular story with John Jones is that John Jones has many options right now, but he has one option that he's been gunning for a long time, which is what? It is Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic is a name that John Jones wants in his resume. So I'm going to tell you why the tides are changing right now with John Jones's decision in fighting Tom Aspinall. Because originally he said he didn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. Maybe he was just trying to play some mind games. Maybe he was trying to ease Tom Aspinall or try to play some sort of Machiavellian game to a certain extent, right? That's also very possible. But now Tom Aspinall is sort of gaining a huge following. For one, he's British, which, by the way, if you fight good and you're from the UK, automatically it's going to be easy for you to garner attention and promote yourself in the best way possible. Because if you're a British fighter, you got BT Sport that got your back. You got Sky Sports. You got all the other MMA channels like MMA Guru and Dan Hardy that sings your praises. And then on top of that, you're Tom Aspinall. You're friends with Michael Bisping, probably the most famous mixed martial arts fighter to have ever come out of Britain. And he gives you that rub. So guess what? It's very positive for you. So I think John Jones is starting to see that. And he's starting to realize that, you know what, man? Maybe, just maybe there's something to this. Maybe he's a lot worth more than Stipe Miocic. Because at this point, what is Stipe Miocic really? What he is nothing more than just a resume. Because Stipe Miocic had a great career, but he's a shell of himself. And not only that, I think a lot of people are sort of losing interest in Stipe Miocic. You look at any poll that regards John Jones and John Jones's particular fight with who he's going to fight next, right? A lot of people really are not screaming for Stipe Miocic to fight John Jones. It's only John Jones that wants to fight Stipe Miocic because of his status alone. But that status right now is literally almost null and voided, right? You heard about Mark Coleman. What was Stipe doing? Are you talking about when Mark Coleman was sort of diving into a fire? Explain some details into that. I know that he tried to save someone and in a process got himself hurt. So, hopefully Mark Coleman does all right, inshallah. But it's a very sad story, isn't it? But that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get caught up in a situation where there's nobody really to help but yourself. And once again, this is kind of where the separation of cowards and heroes sort of lie at, right? Now, most men, most people, for whatever reason, are not going to go and dive into a burning house. Man, I got to tell you, man, that's a very dark situation to even think about. You imagine, right? You have somebody in a house that's burning, right? And it is either your choice to go in there and save that person, but also be in the process of burning yourself and then possibly getting that person hurt while that person's already hurt and in a very volatile situation. I mean, it's a very hard choice. And let me tell you, Mark Coleman made that choice. Also, speaking of other UFC heavyweights, you know what? Let's make this whole theme about praising UFC well, not praising, obviously, because that's haram, but giving props to UFC heavyweights all throughout the years. How about Cain Velasquez, for one example, right? You know about Cain Velasquez's case, right? He went and shot at a person who was violating one of his children at a daycare. Now, a lot of people would say something to the effect of, well, why did you go out and shoot him? Why not just go and beat his butt? This is what you do. You're a professional fighter. Well, the reality of this whole situation is that some guys, especially some fighters, they just feel like, well, beating you up is too easy and it'll give you clout. So I'm just going to do the ultimate in shooting at you. And that's what Cain Velasquez did. He got locked up for it in the process. But unfortunately, there were people out there that were saying something to the effect of, well, Cain Velasquez was endangering people. And this is what I got to say about that, right? I think that for people that say that, I don't think they have children, right? And I think that if you don't have children, you're not really going to understand why people make the kind of choices that they make, and in particular with Cain Velasquez. So something to think about that in that particular process, right? On certain sides of things. So did you guys hear about the new matchup with Pantoja taking on Steve Erzeg? Now, that's going to be an interesting matchup. So I have Sergio Pettis as one of my social media friends on Facebook, right? Sergio said something to the effect where, man, you could be a UFC flyweight and you could literally win a title shot with just 2 fights. And he's talking about Steve Erzeg. Now, is it that? Or is it just the fact that everybody is busy in the UFC in the current moment of time? I think that's really what it comes down to, right? A lot of people are busy. There's a lot of people out there that already have fights going on, fights already lined up. Obviously, Davison has a fight going on with Cody Garbrandt, but that's a 135-pound fight from what I understand. And Davison is no longer going to fight at 125 after he had lost to Brendan Moreno. So that's that. So that's going to be interesting. Steve Erzeg, I'm all for that. Ajiri got a title shot very quickly also. Yes, a part of the reason why he got a title shot very quickly was because he came from an organization where he fought a lot of the top fighters in the world, right? So sometimes you don't necessarily have to fight in the UFC, but man, I tell you what, if you fight in other big organizations, you make a splash in the UFC, there's a good chance that you can get a title shot with just a couple of wins. Or I mean, when Justin Gaethje came into the UFC, that's sort of what they were sort of trying to do with him, right? They were just trying to fast track him. Obviously, he had some troubles along the way, but yeah, some fighters who do great in other organizations usually are going to get fast tracked simply because they're coming into the UFC with their own clout. Michael Venom Page is one example of that particular concept. So, speaking of Michael Venom Page, let's see if we can. I'm going to play to you the video that I made 7 months ago discussing how Michael Venom Page is a free agent. And Michael Venom Page, in the current moment of time right now, is a free agent. So what exactly does that mean for Bellator? But in relationship to the BKFC and the UFC. Now, what's really interesting about Bellator is that they allowed Michael Venom Page to fight in BKFC. If you guys remember, he fought none other than Mike the African Perry in a bare knuckle boxing match in BKFC while he was contracted with Bellator. And while in the midst of his Bellator career as an early undefeated prospect, he also went out to box for David Hayes' promotion out in the UK. Now, in this particular weekend coming up, Michael Venom Page is set to attend the UFC London card, which, by the way, is really lackluster in a lot of people's minds right now because the ticket prices are high and it doesn't justify the type of names that they have going on in this particular card. For example, you have Tom Aspinall, who is coming off of a loss, but you have Sergey Spivak, who is a really unknown heavyweight prospect coming up. Of course, all the hardcores know who he is. We all know who Tom Aspinall is. He's still a great name. He still has a big following behind him, but not exactly the type of London card that you would expect, especially when following the Leon Edwards versus Usman rematch, which took place in the last London card, which, by the way, was a pay-per-view. And this one is a free card for ESPN and BT Sport, or what is now known as TNT. Well, Michael Venom Page will be in attendance for that particular matchup, but what exactly does that attendance mean? Well, it could mean a couple of things. Number one, it could mean that he's just there as a guest. He just referenced in an Ariel Helwani show not too long ago, in the past couple of minutes, just about, mentioned that he was there to tag along with none other than El-Kheer and their management group, Paradigm Sports, which is based out here in California, in particular out in LA. So he's going to tag along with a few of the guys that are in that particular camp of Paradigm Sports, or he's going to go there as a particular employee, a hopeful of some sort, maybe as some sort of a job interview, if Dana White is even going to attend in this card. Now, if you want to talk about lackluster, if Dana White's not going to attend this card, obviously you see why a lot of people are getting mad at the fact that, for one, London's rent in the current housing crisis at the time is really high. And then on top of that, you're charging these fans loads and loads of money just to watch in the front row and maybe even in the back row and in the nosebleeds for an you can't justify it. You can't justify this type of card. But nonetheless, it's still a UFC card. It's still a great card. And if you are a hardcore fan, you're going to watch it. And I'm going to tell you, aside from the heavyweight main event with Tom Aspinall's return, I think one of the biggest storylines going into this matchup is, will Michael Venom Page sign with the UFC, or is he just there as some sort of bystander of some? Well, he did sign to the UFC. And also, the other thing that we can take from 7 months ago when I made that video up until now is guess what? The UFC cards in live ticket sales, they're very expensive, right? So that's sort of the big thing that is going on right now. Now, in UFC Miami, I believe Dana White was bragging about the gate that they had accumulated, which is somewhere around 14 million to that extent, right? Which is a very high gate, but a lot of it is contributed once again by the high ticket prices. I'm probably going to make a separate video about that sometime in the future, but inshallah.
Or some sort of watcher or some sort of fan, or maybe it just means nothing at all. But nonetheless, for the UFC to pick up Michael Venom Page, I think it would really help a lot of the UK market that they're trying to build at the current moment of time. Build more stars, build more cards. But more than likely, let's say in a hypothetical sense that Michael Venom Page gets signed to the UFC, what kind of first fight are they going to look at with him? Maybe somebody like Ian Gary, maybe Daniel Rodriguez, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Shavkat Rakhmonov if he moves up in the upper echelons of the top 15 and into the top 10. Maybe even Colby Covington. And how about maybe even Leon Edwards on British crime for the 170 title if both of those guys are still at the top or make it that far in the end. But who knows? Right now, all we know is that Michael Venom Page is a free agent. And what comes out of that, I think.
And 7 months later, he has made his UFC debut against none other than, what's his name? Kevin Holland, right? And it's finally happened. He's here. So once again, it goes back to what my man here, Poetan, was saying earlier. Jerry also got a title shot very quickly. Guess what? What did I just say earlier in that particular content? I said that eventually, maybe he's going to fight Leon Edwards if Leon Edwards continues winning on a British crime of some sort, right?
Sky is the limit.
British crime for that.
Rodriguez, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Shavkat Rakhmonov if he moves up in the upper echelons of the top 15 and into the top 10. Maybe even Colby Covington. And how about maybe even Leon Edwards on British crime for the 170 title if both of those guys are still at the top or make it that far in the end.
And once again, this is where we're at. So great for UK MMA. I mean, speaking of which, I think there is an MMA card right now with Cage Warriors. I'm going to put that on right now while I'm going to react to it. So I'm going to react to the Manchester card of hold on, let me put this on real quick. Oh, never mind. No, oh wait, hold on here. Cage Warriors. So there's a Cage Warriors card going on right now. This is okay. All right, let's put this on just so we can take a look at. Oh wait, this is only for the okay, this is only for the prelims. I think you'd have to get on the Fight Pass. Okay, never mind. We'll scratch that. But anyways, going back to what did Poetan here say? He said Izzy versus MVP would be fun. You know, that would be great. Even now more than ever, right? Now, a lot of people have always talked about seeing MVP fight Izzy for a long time. Oh, okay. There's still a live Cage Warriors card going on. I'm gonna put this on while I'm talking to you guys. So that would be a great fight with Izzy versus MVP. Now, before, it wasn't really a fight that anybody would talk about per se, right? Simply because Izzy was a champion at the time and MVP was, well, nowhere near the UFC, and we didn't know if he was going to enter the UFC. But lo and behold, he did. So he ended up joining the UFC. Now, Izzy is no longer a champion, so why not? You know what? They could probably still fill that in UFC 300 if they wanted to, but I think at this point, UFC 300 is lock and loaded and ready to go, and that's really about it with UFC 300. So,
But who
let's
knows? Right
finish
now,
this
all we
video
know
right
is that
here.
Michael Venom Page is a free agent, and what comes out of that, I think sky is the limit. But if he signs with the UFC, you got to understand, he can't just go out and box whenever he wants. You've seen how that worked out with Francis. Now, they did Conor McGregor. They allowed him to box, but it was with Floyd Mayweather, and they're not going to allow a UFC fighter to go do these journeyman boxing matches, right? In the way that he does, in the way that you do with top up-and-coming prospects in boxing. They will either want the big names or no names at all, or if it just seems impossible for their UFC athlete to beat that boxer like Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, they're just not going to do it. But congratulations to Michael Venom Page on his free agency. I think that all the leagues around the fight world are really going to be intrigued by signing you. But I just hope it is with the UFC. The fan in all of us wants to see that. But will it happen? Who knows? It's the theater of the unknown inside the cage and inside the ring, and it's also the theater of the unknown outside of competition. So sky's the limit from here.
Well, and again, 7 months later, here we are, right? So that was 7 months ago before the Francis Ngannou and the Tyson Fury fight had happened. And on top of that, that was way before Michael Venom Page was going to be signed to the UFC. So fast forward later, what can we analyze about that particular video that's a little bit different now? For one, Michael Venom Page can't box or go into BKFC anymore. You can't do that while you're in the UFC. So that particular freedom has been stripped from him of being able to do that. But what he has now is a certain level of competition that he can go out and try to challenge himself. There's Jack Della Maddalena that he can go and try to challenge himself against. There's Shavkat Rakhmonov. And then there's Colby Covington. Here's the problem with all those matches. And I'm going to tell you point blank reality. He can't win any of those fights. And especially those names that I had just mentioned. Now, can he? Yes, he can. But I think that when he first got knocked out by Lima in Bellator, I think a lot of guys started really seeing a certain chink in his armor, right? So there was a time where obviously Michael Venom Page was undefeated, but that time has now passed. And as a result of that, well, now a lot of people have really figured him out. So we are watching Cage Warriors right now as I'm watching one of these fighters enter. I believe that this fight is taking place in Manchester, England. And, well, how appropriate. Obviously, English MMA is on the rise right now. Michael Venom Page is now in the UFC. Tom Aspinall. There's Muhammad Makayev. Obviously, Leon Edwards is the undisputed champion at the current moment of time. And then you have Christian Leroy Duncan in the mix of the 185 division. You have Mick Parker, who I believe is the training partner of Tom Aspinall. So UK MMA is, yeah, man, they are a force to be reckoned with right now in the UFC, right? And you know what? I'm very interested to see where they're going to place Muhammad Makayev. Obviously, Pantoja and Steve Erzeg are the next in line right now to fight for the title, with Pantoja as the current champion and Erzeg, who just literally came out of nowhere. But once again, just like what Sergio Pettis said in his Facebook page, all you got to do is win a couple of fights and you're in there in the 125 division. It's not the deepest division ever. It's sort of like the women's 145 division, in which Amanda Nunes ended up retiring along with her career. So that's going to be interesting to say the least, right? So let's see here. By the way, guys, if this is your first time tapping in, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm here to give you guys the best content in MMA as much as possible, but also taking a look at other world events and other aspects of culture, music, current event news, politics of California, and everything in between. So let's take a look at some past videos that I made about. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Ryan Garcia, right? Look, I got to tell you something about Ryan Garcia. This right here is going to be a very bad fight for Ryan Garcia. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. LOL. That Mr. Bean guy got a title shot before Bilal. You're talking about Steve Erzeg. Yeah, that is again, that's really what it comes down to. By the way, guys, also don't forget to take a look at my video that I made yesterday about Bilal Muhammad, but also part of that video was also talking about Conor McGregor and his contract negotiation issues that he has going on. But yeah, it is quite surprising Steve Erzeg got a title shot straight away in comparison to Bilal Muhammad, who's been grinding for a long time. So right now in the Manchester card of Cage Warriors, it's Breen versus Abuna in the first round right now at Cage Warriors 168. So what did I write about Ryan Garcia here? Okay, so before all this weird Ryan Garcia stuff, right? All the knowledgeable boxing people were already going to pick our Muslim brother, Devin Haney. Okay, now that Ryan is flying off the handles, drinking, smoking weed, on top of doing other hard drugs and acting a fool, etc., I think he will seriously get hurt in this fight. And by the way, all the fighting men know exactly what I'm talking about. There's guys that can beat you, and you can still show up for a payday and give a good account of yourself. This is not that. Ryan is walking into a massacre. Okay, this is what happens when you don't have a good mother like Ryan Garcia's mom who enables his behavior, as opposed to Bill Haney, the father of Devin Haney, quite frankly, is an example for black men and Muslims around the world who stay present in the lives of their young sons and lads and their kids. Now, as for Ryan's dad, you guys heard it. He said some pretty racist things about Devin Haney, talking about, oh, you have, a nappy hair or this and that. Look, in all honesty, of course Ryan's dad is racist. Here's something you guys don't understand about California politics that I'm going to put you guys on some game on, right? So as a Mexican American, he grew up in the 1980s when they went to war with black gangs all the way to the Rodney King era. But that's the reality of it. That's a story for another day. Either way, man, I'm ready for some black on brown crime, Cali style, NorCal versus SoCal. And by the way, here's the thing about it, right? Racial divisions are not cool in real life, but only in boxing, then it becomes a good promo. So with that in mind, let the games begin. Race and boxing go hand in hand, at least in MMA. We only hate each other based on gym affiliations. And again, not all hate is created equal, is it? So that's the reality of Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney in the current moment of time. But speaking of which, I'm going to play you the video that I did 10 days ago, almost a week ago, with Ryan
Everybody on
Garcia.
the internet wants to know whether Ryan Garcia is on drugs or not. Now, the proper question is whether he's not. It's not about whether he's on drugs or not. I think we sort of know that he is. But the question is, why? Why is he on drugs? I think that is the proper question to ask. Well, many point to the reasons of being so young and rich and famous at his age and having all the resources and money to be able to do what he wants to do. In all honesty, I think this is a cop-out and an excuse. Now, do you say this about, let's say, other Muslim athletes, such as that soccer player Hakimi guy? That famous soccer player that had this story where he basically divorced his wife and she didn't get any of the money because all of his assets was under his mother's name, that guy. Do you think that all the riches that guy has, do you think that he's going to fall into the same vices as Ryan Garcia? Absolutely not.
Now, we're talking about Devin Haney, who's also 25 years old, same age as Ryan Garcia. Does he fall into that category with the likes of Ryan Garcia acting in this kind of matter, taking the type of choices that he does with the rampant drug use that has plagued his current lifestyle? And I think the answer is no. Would you say that about Khabib? No. Would you say that about Khamzat? No. Would you say that about Islam? No, absolutely not. And of course, if you follow this page long enough, and you know that I'm a mixed martial arts page, so I try to be very neutral when it comes to certain fighters that I talk about, and I try to be very objective. But as a young Muslim male, such as Devin Haney, I got to be honest and say that he doesn't have that same problem that Ryan Garcia has going on. And I think the reason is because of the Islamic ideology that comes into play. Now, here's the thing that a lot of people always try to bash me for when it comes to this Muslim fighter bias that I have. They always try to slam it as if I have this sense of supremacy complex for my people and the people that share my religion. And you know what? That is further from the truth. And let me explain why. For one, when it comes to the Islamic community, we're a very diverse community. And with that in mind, you got to understand that we come from all different backgrounds, all different, let's say, social classes, different ethnic groups, different cultural settings and regions from around the world that may influence us in a certain way, whether athletic or cultural practices or behaviors and habits and things of that nature. So we all vary in multiple ways. But the one thing that we all have in common in the Islamic faith is that there are just certain things that we don't do. And sometimes when you want to analyze the kicks and the punches and the techniques and the physical attributes of an athlete, you often forget that sometimes it is just about what it is that you don't do. And what do I mean by that? Well, don't do drugs. That's a given, but the vices are there. Don't drink. Well, for Muslim guys, that's quite easy because that's one of the biggest rules that we have in a religion. But for other people, they take the route of, let's say, well, let's just do it in moderation and do it when we celebrate. And then after you celebrate, then off to the next day doing it the same thing. And it becomes a habit, so on and so forth. Okay, so don't drink, don't do drugs. What else? Don't stay up late at night. Don't eat junk food. Okay, so some of these are easier said than done, and some of them are easier than the other. It is a lot easier to refrain from junk food, depending on who you are. And it is a lot easier refraining from alcohol, especially if you are a Muslim fighter and it is part of your religious duties. On top of that, the controversial issue of pork, that also comes into play, and how that affects your body as opposed to how that may affect your athletic performance. Obviously, different cultures have different ways of going about things. And quite frankly, I mean, maybe there's some physical adverse effects that come into pork consumption. And you let me know in a comment section below if you agree with that or not. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Muslim people around the world that may disagree with you. But once again, sometimes when it comes to preparing for a training camp and a fight career, sometimes it is just literally what it is that you don't do. Not so much about the physical attributes, not so much about your physical skills that you've gained over the years as a result of your training and your habits in your environment, but sometimes it's really about not drinking, not doing the bad food stuff, right? Or just going about living a healthy lifestyle all throughout the years, as opposed to, let's say, somebody like Paddy Pimblett, who just likes to eat whatever it is that he likes to eat. And then when it's time for crunch time and getting ready for a camp, then he'll buckle down, get the diet in, and try to catch up in a fat camp, which realistically is what it is, as opposed to just worrying about his skills while he had already maintained keeping his weight down all throughout the years. And that's the reality of this situation
when it comes to people's lifestyles and what they do and what they don't do that makes them an elite fighter or not an elite fighter. Now, going into this fight with Devin Haney, you can't deny that Ryan Garcia is going to have a disadvantage. It's just obvious. And then on top of that, boxing is one of those sports where sometimes you can sort of tell 70 to 80% of the time who's going to win. And why is that? Well, for one, it is because of, let's say, just recent resumes. You look at Devin Haney, he's fought nothing but the best guys in the world and is the undisputed champion for a reason. We've seen Ryan Garcia, who is a big name, fall against Tank Davis, got finished. And then that brings a lot of question because, hey, look, it's one thing to lose a fight based on a decision, but my goodness, it is another thing to lose a fight and getting finished emphatically, knowing that you and that guy are of equal skill level, equal attributes, equal sense.
Shout out to my man Craig Durant here. Izzy versus MVP would be crazy. Yeah, that's what me and Poetan in the chat were singing earlier. And I said that it would probably be a great opportunity to do that in a current moment of time right now, based on the fact that Izzy is no longer busy. He's not tied down to being a belted, undisputed champion. And MVP is coming in as a 170 potential contender to a certain extent. Now, I don't know what ranking Kevin Holland is in the 170 division, but beating Kevin Holland, I think, puts him somewhere, at least a little bit closer. Yeah, perfect time. That's right. He wrote perfect tome, but I think he meant perfect time. Don't worry, I gotcha. Yeah, there it is. A little correction right there. But yeah, it's the perfect time for them to do that right now. Obviously, they were trying to make Izzy versus Dricus du Plessis. And once again, Dricus du Plessis turned down that fade against Israel Adesanya. I don't know why, but again, it's an injury causing reason and a whole bunch of other factors as well. I mean, cowardice could probably be another aspect to that, but I don't know if I would go as far as to call Dricus du Plessis a coward, but everything in the MMA is about timing and strategy. So,
sense of speed and maybe power. Maybe one guy has more power than the other. Maybe one guy has more speed than the other. But the fact of the matter is, elite level fighting, I'm going to just frankly say it, usually goes the distance. And why? Because that is what elite fighting does. You are in elite fighting because of the fact that you can make the distance, close the gaps, or somehow mitigate the gaps of alleviating danger, which takes a high level of concentration in the sport that is known as the sweet science, which means that when you are fighting at an elite level, you can't have any mishaps. You can't have any mistakes. You got to be on point, game tight. And that is what I notice separates high-level guys in boxing as opposed to, let's say, high-level guys in mixed martial arts. I'm sorry to say that even though this is a mixed martial arts channel and that I promote the sport, I'm an advocate of the sport, I have to say that boxing really, it has less margin of.
So the video ends right there, and I'm just going to say that if you guys want to check out part 2, go on the live section. I have part 2 of that in the live section where I go into details about Ryan Garcia and his rampant drug use on his way to fighting Devin Haney. And what I was saying at the end of that video was basically saying that there's less margin of error in boxing at the highest level than there is in MMA. Now, with the MMA, there's smaller gloves. So if you have a knockout punch like Francis Ngannou, you can definitely get away with it. Look at this Breen right here just going off on Buna as he got him in the cage with 4 minutes left in the third round as we're watching Cage Warriors right now. And we're also reacting to a whole bunch of different videos that I've done over the past. So, yeah, that's the reality of that's the reality of Ryan Garcia and his current state of mind as we are heading into the Devin Haney fight. And then there's Breen. He just got a finish TKO victory right now, so that just ended the fight in Cage Warriors. Roadhouse has recently came out. If you guys have been, let me know in the comment section if anybody has seen Roadhouse, if you can give me any recommendations for it, if you think that it's good, or if you thought that it was horrible, or if even if you're just looking forward to seeing it and you haven't seen it yet. Me, I personally haven't seen it. I'm curious to know how it goes, what happens, and how this is going to affect Conor McGregor's future career in both fighting and acting. So here's a little video that I made with that particular instance.
Star of the show. To really put it bluntly, they are the star of the show. They did amazing in terms of raising their stock into the next level of superstardom. Whereas with Anthony Joshua, he sort of maintained what he had already had going on in terms of.
Greg Durant, thank you very much for saying that. You are very knowledgeable and entertaining to listen to. Thank you very much for that compliment. I try to be very knowledgeable with the sport. I try to do my diligence in doing research. I will say, though, a lot of the things that I do talk about is just based on muscle memory. Being that I'm a longtime follower of the sport, I've competed myself. I've done Muay Thai, I've done Jiu-Jitsu, I've done Judo, I've wrestled all throughout high school. So on top of that, I'm a natural showman at heart. So I try to incorporate all those things at once. So thank you for that compliment. And don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue on with this video.
Being the #1 celebrity pro boxer in England. But what I mean by that is probably the most famous with the highest notoriety. I mean, you got to remember, in the peak of AJ Mania, the guy met Prince Charles, who now is King Charles. But that shows you that when you meet the royal family in the UK, that constitutes superstardom to a whole nother level, mainstream to a whole nother level. Now, is Sean O'Malley there? Maybe not. But I think after this performance against Chito Vera, well, it's hard to argue with that, considering that he was great with his stance switches. Not only that, he was very much amazing with being able to fight from a distance, dart in and out, being able to hit the shots and pick the shots, and also just being able to neutralize any game that Marlon Vera was going to throw at him. In other words, just really smothered him to the point where it was as if he debilitated the movement of Marlon Vera. In other words, the darting movement in and out and the constant jabs and stance switching, I believe, was overloading Marlon Vera. And as a result, he was able to obtain about 183 some odd shots against Marlon Vera. And one of them was a knee that he took to the face as he was about to shoot in for a takedown, or sort of ducked in a way, and then took a knee to the head as a result. And it was great. It was amazing. It was an amazing performance, but even more amazing for Anthony Joshua. So as I'm talking about this weekend's past fights, I really want to get down to business with the realities of other fighters out there that are not Sean O'Malley or Anthony Joshua, which literally are the biggest winners of this weekend, and for the reasons that I had just mentioned. So as a result, a lot of fighters have to take side jobs after they retire or while they're even competing. And why am I mentioning that? Well, for one, Sean Strickland talked about the Roadhouse movie and how he trashed it as a reflection of fighters and what they go through in terms of having a side job or a post-job career.
meaning that when they're done with fighting, this is what they have going on. I got to tell you, not everyone is going to obtain a certain level of longevity. Speaking of longevity, I'm watching No Jumper right now with Whack 100 and Adam interviewing, guess who? The Insane Clown Posse, right? Now, why is this sort of interesting and why I'm telling you that I'm watching this is because I'm very fascinated with the longevity of the Insane Clown Posse, right? Like, if you remember, these guys are known for their beef with Eminem, right? And because of this beef that they have with Eminem, they sort of had a mainstream following to a certain degree. All right. So before I go on with that particular content, right, I wanted to talk about the Insane Clown Posse because I thought this was very interesting. I wanted to bring up a little story about the time that I had ran across some Insane Clown Posse members, right? So I got to tell you, I got a homeboy down in Los Angeles well, I don't know where he's at now, but I'm talking about like as far back as 2009. Okay, the dude's name was Ace, right? He was a Crip member from LA, right? He had family out here in Sacramento. He would go back and forth from here to Sacramento to LA, just like a lot of people up and down the coast of California. They move back and forth, or they travel up and down, or visit and then come back to where they're at. Well, anyways, so we run across these juggalos, right? These guys that are Insane Clown Posse supporters. Now, what's interesting about the quote unquote juggalos or the Insane Clown Posse is that the US government, in particular the FBI, had classified the Insane Clown Posse or the juggalos and their supporters as a gang, right? So, in the same similar fashion that they would label the Aryan Brotherhood a gang, the same similar fashion that they would label the essays, the Soreños, the Norteños, the Bloods, the Crips, the Latin Kings, the Gangster Disciples, and any gangs that you have out there across the United States and around the world. They were classified as a gang. But in reality, what they are kids that are playing a fantasy. Because if you remember during the Columbine shooting back in 1999, Marilyn Manson was blamed for that, along with the Insane Clown Posse. And then the Insane Clown Posse did an interview in ABC telling them that, you know what, man, what kid out there is looking at our face paint thinking that this is all real? Well, the reality is there's some people out there that truly believe that it's real, and they actually gang and click up wearing juggalo paraphernalia and somehow believe that the Insane Clown Posse is a real gang. So in comes my friend Ace, right? Who's a real known Crip gang member. Goes up to one of these juggalos. And by the way, this was in Sacramento, in downtown, in particular in Old Sac. There was this area in Old Sac. If you go there, there's this particular area near the river where a lot of kids go down by this little pier or whatever, right? And they go down there and they smoke and they drink and they do whatever, they just hang out. So Asa goes up to one of these juggalo members' girlfriends, right? And so one of them was trying to press up on Asa as a result of that. Obviously, I was with Asa, and here's something I notice about a lot of gang members in California, right? If they know that their friend, in particular, someone like myself who knows how to fight, who has a little bit of size on him, is in good shape, they're going to use that to their advantage. And then on top of that, Asa knows that I ain't no punk. He knows that if we're going to get down, we're going to get down. Man, he went and punked all those Insane Clown Posse members, okay, and reminded them that, you know what, man, this is real gang banging out here in California, and this is just what we do. And guess what? They ended up standing down as a result of it, right? So just thought I wanted to sort of add that into the mix as we are talking about the Insane Clown Posse, right? So their supporters basically pretend that they are a gang, but in reality, they're not. And then even the Insane Clown Posse will tell you that they're not a gang or they shouldn't be classified as one. But unfortunately, there were people out there that have committed crimes under the Insane Clown Posse name, and therefore the FBI had no choice but to classify them as such. So just a little interesting story I wanted to share with you guys based on that. And if you want the full interview of that, check out the Whack 100 and the No Jumper interview with Adam and Whack while they were talking about their beef with Eminem, the Insane Clown Posse one. So let me get back to this one right here.
But they've always had a base of fans that follow them, known as the Juggalos and whatnot. And I got loads of stories I could tell you about that particular group of people and the type of fan base that they have and the type of belief that they think that they are in a gang of some sort or some imaginary fantasy like that. But nonetheless, what we're talking about here is the longevity of some fighters who are a main staple, have a fan base, just like ICP in the way that I'm mentioning right now, but also have accumulated a certain amount of wealth over the years that they've done whatever craft they were in, right? But then there are those people that are the majority, which exactly is what Sean Strickland is talking about with the Roadhouse movie. As a mirror to the world of mixed martial arts and its majority participants that are involved in it. And how ironic that it is Conor McGregor who plays the not the protagonist, because obviously Jake Gyllenhaal is the protagonist, but rather the antagonist of the movie, in order to sort of symbolize that what we have going on here is a man who is on top, above everybody, an established name, somebody that is, very well respected to a certain degree in the industry, not so much of their moral choices, but sort of symbolically knocking down the smaller men. Because remember, I'll give you one example with Conor McGregor and his little spat that he had with Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall made a comment about Conor McGregor's upcoming fight, or somehow made an opinion about his career trajectory. And as a result, Conor McGregor threatened to somehow pull Tom Aspinall from some sort of sponsorship deal and said something along the lines of, well, I could starve you if I wanted, right? Which, by the way, is an overall sentiment that Conor McGregor has. And for what reason? Well, for the simple fact that he is the man on top. And he is a guy that can dictate where the UFC is going to go in terms of their trajectory and their monetary gains. But at the same time, also the controversial subject of their contract disputes and barriers that come into play with him being so big that they can't barely afford to pay the overhead costs while also paying him the amount of money that he's worth, considering that the Saudis are out there ready to pay him hundreds of millions of dollars. So this story with Sean Strickland saying this about the Roadhouse movie really takes a whole different web of networks and different pathways to look at this particular situation, especially in a symbolic matter. Because the character...
For those of you that are just joining right now, I am reacting to my twin brother speaking. No, it's not my twin brother. I'm joking. But don't forget to like and subscribe.
That Jake Gyllenhaal plays in that movie is exactly the type of guy that most fighters are. And in here comes Conor McGregor sort of knocking him down to what? To a level that, could lead a lot of these guys into poverty, but also having to make different choices into different types of jobs and career opportunities that they have or don't have. So that is the reality of Roadhouse. And I think a whole big credit to Sean Strickland for being able to see that and also really just convey that message to the world, because there's a lot of truth to that symbolism. So Don't forget to like and subscribe with a symbol of gesture. Share, tell a friend to tell a friend.
All right. So I got to tell you, right? Moving on to another topic, right? We had mentioned about Izzy versus MVP. That's going to be a good fight. It would be probably fun to see something like that. But I got to tell you, during UFC 300, they were trying to make Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. Now, I'm going to go back and play a video that I shot in, guess where? A very expensive hotel in Santa Monica, right? So it's going to be a beautiful background you're going to see that I made during the summer. And this was right after Israel Adesanya had confronted Dricus after knocking out Robert Whitaker. Okay. And then obviously he dropped the N bomb and this and that. So again, we missed out on a fight that has a real huge implication on entertainment. I doubt Connor needed to do the movie. Why wouldn't he make movie money? I doubt Connor needed to do the movie. Why wouldn't he make movie money? So you feel that he didn't need to do the movie? If you can clarify on that, just so I can, give a better take on that. So I think what you're trying to say is that I doubt Connor needed to do the movie, so he didn't need to do the movie. Why wouldn't he make movie money? Okay, why wouldn't he make movie money? Okay, so let me address that, right? So what we have going on in the current modern era right now, right? There is digital streaming that I think is beating out people going to movie theaters. Have you been to a movie theater of recent times? And if you have, do you notice that? Okay, because obviously I'm a little bit older, right? I'm 38 years old. I'm going to be 39 in May. So I grew up in the 90s when there was a movie like Independence Day with Will Smith. That right there was a big movie. Everybody was going to pack the theaters. Okay, and you were going to be waiting in line and possibly trying to get a seat in the movie theaters just to even see that, right? LOL, no. So, in other words, you haven't been to a movie theater lately. Okay, that's normal. I'm going to tell you why that's normal. I'm 35. Okay, so brother, we're sort of in the same age, sort of. I guess it's safe to say when I was a senior in high school, you were probably a freshman. So yeah, we're the same age, and nonetheless. But you grew up in the '90s, so you know what I'm talking about, right? When the movie Scary Movie came out, right, with the Wayans brothers, one of the Wayans brothers was a part of that. That packed up theaters. Nowadays, it doesn't do that anymore. We have Netflix, we have Hulu. And guess what? This particular movie with Conor McGregor didn't even make the theaters. It went straight into Prime Amazon for all that's worth. So keep that in mind, right? That's sort of the reality that we have going on with the movie industry right now. So Conor doing this movie, you're right. It probably is not the biggest financial incentive to do it, but it is one of those things that you could say is a bucket list that he could check off as to say, you know what, I did a movie with a legend like Jake Gyllenhaal. You know, Jake Gyllenhaal was in Jarhead. He was in Southpaw. He was in a few cop movies where he played an LAPD officer, which, by the way, is quite a classic, right? I mean, among other classics that Jake Gyllenhaal has made. So again, legends recognizing legends, and great. It's great that they were able to collaborate on that. I do, however, see a huge symbolism in the movie, right? Which I had mentioned earlier in that particular video that I had just played for you, which is what? The concept of a fighter having to take on a second job or another career in their post-fight career and struggling in the process. I mean, and look at the symbolism behind it. Guess who's holding him down in the movie as the antagonist, which is none other than Conor McGregor, who is the highest paid fighter of all time. But even with that, while Conor McGregor is also the highest paid fighter of all time, he's also the highest robbed fighter of all time. Now, if you imagine in a Floyd Mayweather fight, He made probably 70 million. How much of that did the UFC take from him in the process? So you got to think about that. Now, speaking of money, how about a big money fight with Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya? And they basically just, I mean, they missed the ball on that one, right? That's really the best way to put it. They missed the ball out on that one. And as a result, well, we're not getting that fight, at least not anytime soon. Now, are we going to see that fight in the future? Yes. And when it does, boy, I'm going to tell you, they are going to bring out all the racial implications that come with that fight. So once again, I'm going to show you guys a video that I made in Santa Monica during the summer when I was talking about the win that that Dricus du Plessis had over Robert Whittaker, and hence them trying to make this fight. So let me show you guys this video right here. So now, if you're just joining me right now, you probably heard that 25-minute rant that I just did in the last video. And I'm doing this video right now, regarding Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya. And what exactly is that? Is that I think this fight is going to have serious racial implications behind it, right? Because here's the thing, right? Does Israel Adesanya really mean to be the way that he is in terms of his hatred towards Dricus du Plessis? Maybe there's a trigger in Israel Adesanya where he feels like, okay, you know what? I'm really triggered by this whole entire thing of Dricus du Plessis saying that, oh, I'm not a real African because I live in New Zealand, and Dricus du Plessis is a real African because he lives in South Africa. But then there's an apartheid, race card built into the whole promotion that I think even Nelson Mandela would be interested in to watch a fight like this, right? I mean, let's understand something. I always said, and I will stand by this, when it comes to combat sports, right, it's an extremely tribal matter. More so with the fans than with the actual fighters. Now, why is that? Well, for the fighters, you have to understand something. They understand that this is a sport. They also understand that they are businessmen. They also understand that they are part entertainers. And they also understand that this is part of the game that they have to do in order to sell tickets, especially if you're one of these regional boxers or regional MMA fighters that's coming up on the scene, and you got to sell tickets, you got to sell yourself, you got to sell an idea, an image to people in order to get them interested in your fights and what it is that you do. But for the fans, everything is about a tribal effect. And let's say if you're a Mexican fighter like Yair Rodriguez, Cesar Chavez Jr. and Sr., Canelo, then you have the likes of GSP with the Canadians. Then you have Michael Bisping for the English fighters. Then you have, I don't know, Jose Aldo for the Brazilians, Gilbert Burns for the Brazilians, Khamzat for not just the Russians and the Eastern Europeans, but for all of the Muslims. And that includes Islam and Khabib as well, and Bilal Muhammad for the Palestinians, and so on and so forth. It's a tribal matter at hand, right? It is to try to connect a certain aspect of, okay, I'm from this part of the world, and this fighter right here is from this part of the world, so I'm going to support him as such because of that. But for the fighters, sometimes they play a role. Now, with Israel Adesanya, I don't know how much of this he's playing a role or how much of this he's really dead serious. With Dricus du Plessis, it almost feels like he's thrown into this situation to where he doesn't know how to really react. And I don't know if that's part of the mind games, but I can tell you that that certainly will affect the way that he comes about things. I saw this meme regarding Israel Adesanya where I believe one of his agents, maybe it was Tim Simpson or something to that effect, was whispering in his ear. And in the meme said something like, yeah, keep saying it to him because you can't say it back to you. He can't say it back to you. Because as you know, Israel Adesanya was dropping the N-bomb, saying, yeah, my African this, my African brother, my N-word, this and that, what N-word, blah, 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 what N-word, blah, 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 this and that. Nonetheless, it's like when Dricus du Plessis, he's kind of stuck. He doesn't know what he's supposed to say. He doesn't know if there's a right way or a wrong way of going about things or this and that. And then on top of that, we live in a cancel cultural world right now. So it's almost debilitating in Dricus du Plessis' part for him to even respond to something like this. And in the way that he responds, it's like, huh? You know what? I'm racist? What? Huh? I'm part of the apartheid or this and that. But it's quite genius in a part of Israel Adesanya. I don't know if it's deliberate. I don't know if it's serious that he's doing it or if there's a methodical game plan attached to it. But nonetheless, it is the cause and effect that is going on, whether he's subconsciously acting on it or planning on it or anything to that effect, right? Either way, it's genius because imagine this. I want you to imagine right now, right? Let's say they announce the Dricus du Plessis Israel Adesanya fight tomorrow. And let's say they were going to do a press conference. So right now, as I'm filming this is probably on a Tuesday of July 11th. Tomorrow is July 12th. So let's say maybe tomorrow on a Wednesday, they have a press conference. I'm not saying that they do, but let's say that, yes, that's the case, right? It would be a massive. And I can tell you that Israel Adesanya would get up on the mic. He would start calling him all these racial implications or talk about the apartheid or talk about the fact that he's a real African and talk about the ancestry of Dricus du Plessis. And then Dricus du Plessis would fire back at something to the effect of, well, what have you ever done for Africa? Or you've never lived here, or say something to that effect, right? I think that would blow over with a lot of people. Now, how about Donald Trump shaking the hand of Dricus du Plessis? You don't think that the media will somehow eat that up and say, hey, look, right here, he shook hands with Donald Trump. And little do they know, months prior, during the fight of Israel Adesanya and El-Kheer, guess what? He even shook the hands of Donald Trump after he won the title back from El-Kheer, right? But the media probably won't show you that. And again, I'm only trying to show you all these different hypothetical scenarios that's going to happen and come. All right. So that right there is a video that I did a couple of months ago in Santa Monica, out in the beach, because you guys know I love the beach. If you're a Californian, why would you not love the beach? This is one of the greatest situations that you have if you live in this region, is being able to be out in the beach. So basically, yes, that was during the time of UFC 290 and past UFC 290, where I had talked about the particular matchup that could happen with Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. And then here we are. All of a sudden now Dricus du Plessis is no longer just a contender. He's now the champion, and Israel Adesanya is no longer a champion and is a former champion, but still a top contender. And they still have yet to be able to make that fight, right? The reason why Sean Strickland even became a champion in the first place was because Dricus du Plessis didn't want to fight Israel Adesanya. And now that he's champion, he doesn't want to fight him again. So very, very tragic to say the least. Come about with Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis in their upcoming press conference, whether that would be tomorrow or whether that would be next week or whether that would be months from now or maybe even the next following year after December of 2023 and into January of 2024. Who knows when this fight is going to be, but when this fight happens, it's going to be big, it's going to be massive, and there's going to be a lot of huge racial implications behind it, even though Dricus du Plessis wants no part of it. Now, why is that? Well, because let me just be honest about this whole thing. Do I find Dricus du Plessis to be a racist guy to any degree? No. But here's the thing. There's a lot of white Americans out there that are not racist, but guess what? There's a lot of them that get called on for being this way or being that way, or because they support Donald Trump, they are somehow deemed, a certain type of category. and they can't do anything about it, right? You know, like look at what happens with the BLM riots, right? You know, let's say you try to stop them from trying to riot in your streets or trying to riot your store. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to look like a racist, right? Nothing you can do, you can win in this type of narrative. Suppose suppose you're a cop, right, in LA or in Wisconsin or wherever the George Floyd situation happened, right? You're just trying to somehow mitigate a dangerous situation because you're a cop and you're called to do these things and this and that. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to look like a racist. That's just the bottom line. How about the Marine that choked out that guy at the NYC subway, right? He choked him to death. Now, there's a lot of controversies that go into that, right? If you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner, you know that you shouldn't be holding a chokehold for no more than 1 minute, right? He held that for God knows how long, right? And then obviously it led to the guy's death, unfortunately. But at the same time, there's also the aspect of the guy was yelling out he was going to kill everybody in the train. So what do? There's nothing that you can do. Guess what? This is literally where Dricus du Plessis is at in his moment of time right now when he's going to fight Israel Adesanya. So if he's going to go in there and he wants to have a great fight and implement his game plan and do what he needs to do, he has to leave all of that out of his head, all the guilt, all of this. You know what? Here's the thing with Dricus du Plessis. He needs to go and embrace this. You know what? You think I'm a racist, so what? So be it. Because look at Israel Adesanya right now. He is loose as a goose, has no care in the world, doesn't care about what anybody thinks or anything to that effect. But guess what? It's going to help him in this fight. Because whether he believes it or not in his head that Dricus du Plessis is a colonizer, that he's a racist, that he's this and that, whether he truly believes that or not, it's obviously enough for him to be so hyper motivated that, I mean, what can you really say, right? You know what I mean? Like he's really playing into it. And what I'm trying to say is that Dricus du Plessis is not. He's trying to deviate away from it. He's trying to make this into something else. He's trying to make this about fighting. He's trying to make this about just mixed martial arts in and of itself. But for Israel Adesanya, he's trying to make it more than just mixed martial arts. And maybe sometimes that's really what you need in order for you to succeed in a fight game like this. You need to go out there and make believe that this is more than just a fight. You need to make believe that this is more than just a contest, that it's more than just that. It is the absolute life and death situation of whatever it is that you're motivated by. And if that helps you, that helps you. But for some other people, it just doesn't help them. They're just nonchalant about everything, like Alex Pereira. Everything to him is just like, whatever. I'm in a roller coaster ride, whatever. I'm just going to keep my face straight. I won the championship. Great. I'm just going to act the way that I do. And that's it. That's just what, I mean, bottom line, I think you guys have to understand that this is more than just a fight. And I think that a lot of people outside of the mixed martial arts world is definitely going to eat this whole fight up. Because guess what? This is just what casuals are attracted to. They're attracted to fights like this. So, yes, casuals are attracted to fights that have a lot of controversy behind them. Obviously, the Conor McGregor fight with Khabib was one of the highest pay-per-view events of all time. Why? Because guess what? It caused a lot of controversy. Conor brought out a whole anti-Islamic rhetoric to try and hurt Khabib. On top of that, he threw a dolly at Khabib months prior, and all that recipe created very big interest for the fight. And to the point where you even had world leaders chiming in on that particular contest. So Yeah, Greg says, I'm sorry, I did not know Jake's character in the movie was an ex-fighter. I thought you were saying Connor needed money. Yeah, no, yes, that's the whole synopsis of the movie. He is a fighter. Now, obviously, that was not the original concept for the Patrick Swayze version of Roadhouse, but they thought that it would be interesting to sort of make Jake a fighter in this movie to sort of give it some kind of modern spin. And lo and behold, they did, and it's great. So right now, we are reacting to the fight between Andy Yates and Christian the Terrier in Cage Warriors. So we're going to do a live reaction to this fight right now while we are also awaiting UFC Fight Night with Tai Tuivasa and Myson Tybura. Christian Tibet. Here we go. Let's react to this fight right here. In Manchester, England. All right, Paul Crossley is the referee of this fight. All right, round one between Yates versus Tibet. Tibet. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Oh, there's a first punch by Tibet, and then Yates goes down. All right, so back in the action right here. Yeah, this Tibet guy seems to have really good boxing here, right? So wait, what happened here while we pause the action? Okay, so he had Yates had a bit of a low blow there. So it's always good to watch some of these new and up and coming guys. So at least somewhere down the road, you can say that you've seen these guys fight. So here we go. Now they're both swinging at each other right now. Another straight hand by Tibet. Now they're sort of swinging at each other in the middle of the octagon right now. Swinging wild. This is quite an entertaining fight. 3:22 of the first round. Tibet shoots in. Now they're grinding up against the fence. All right, now Tibet has all right, so now Tibet has Yates on the ground in his full guard position right now. All right, Scott is back. Now they're back up on their feet. All right. Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna call it quits for this one right here. Well, no, we'll call it quits after 2 hours or so, maybe in the 2 hour mark. So right around 1 o'clock, as we are doing a countdown for the fight card that we have tonight. So is going for an elbow right here. Yates is going for an elbow as Tibet is going for a double leg, but seems to be affecting him right there. And now he's trying to fight off that elbow and sort of releases the double leg takedown in that. 125, 123. Now Yates has Tibet hurt. Now he's got him backed up against the fence. Now he's hitting him on the body. Goes for a spinning back elbow there, misses. Now they're just swinging for the fences right here. And now he's got Yates backed up against the fence once again for a single leg attempt. Now he's trying to go for a trip with a body lock. With a body lock, he gets Yates down, sort of scrambles away. Yates is back up on the fence again. Yates has a wizard on Tibet as he has him in, as he's backed up against the fence with Tibet. There he is. There it is. Now he's got the takedown completed at the end of the first round. Now he's in a side control position. Yeah, not really much time to do anything at this side control position. So that first round right there, you got to give that to Tibet, only because of the constant takedowns that he's had. I think he's rocked him a few times there. There was, I believe, one illegal blow that he had on him. But with that low kick, he sort of got hit with a straight shot there. All right, guys, so we're going to go on for 9 more minutes, and then we are going to leave on the 2-hour mark of this live stream. So I've been on for about 2 hours now, so don't forget to like and subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, and we will continue on with this contest and see where this heads to. All right, round 2 now of Yates versus Tibet in this Cage Warriors 168 Manchester card. Here we go. Straight shots straight away. 452, 451 of the second round between Yates and Tibet as we are reacting live. Switching stances with Tibet. Goes for a 1-2. Connects. Going forward with another 1-2, 430, 427, 426. Low kick attempt misses. I believe Yates is already busted up in the nose right now, and that's as a result of all the straight shots that Tibet has been throwing at him. Double jab attempt by Tibet. Goes down low with a jab or a straight shot to the body. Circling around Yates right now. .325, 323 of the second round. Another shot by Yates. He's busted up in his nose right now. It's a good fight so far. Just a real high-pace action right here. Sort of a tit for tat they have going on here. Switching stances by Tibet. Really like this. Very Terrence Crawford-like in his approach in that matter. .250 left of the second round. 249, 247. Jab switching stances once again. Very nice movement on Tibet here. Breaks away from the clinch. 2:30 left of the second round between Tibet versus Yates in this Cage Warriors Manchester card. 222, 220, 219. Low kick by Tibet connects. 206, 205. Oh, he knocks Tibet down on that one. That's quite a game changer right there by Yates. Now he's pushing him back up against the fence, sort of walking him down. $133, $132, $131. $119, $118, $117. $109 left. All right, guys, we got about 4 minutes left into the stream as we are reacting to this fight right here. Even after the 2-hour mark, we're probably going to continue on and just finish off with this fight right here, and then that'll be that. It'll be the UFC card next. I'm not going to do a live reaction on that one, but yeah, obviously I'll probably do a reaction to it afterwards. $30 seconds left into the second round. All right, Tibet's trying to clinch him up, trying to take him down in this position right here. All right, now that is the end of the second round. One more round into this fight, and then we're going to go. Yeah, short shot right there. You know what? I got these two fighters mixed up. Sorry, this is what happens when you're watching a regional fight, right? You don't know who is who. So everything that I said about one guy to the other is the opposite, just so you know. All right, round 3. Third and final round. Hopefully we get a finish in this one right here. Paddy Pimblett in the crowd right now. They're not showing it live right now, but I've seen him earlier when they were sort of flipping the camera around in one of the earlier fights. So here we go. Third round, Yates versus Tibet. 447, 446. All right. So Yates is the one in the blue shorts, and Tibet is the one in the gray shorts, from what I understand. And Tibet is the one that's bleeding out of his nose, as I was saying earlier. So I thought it was Yates, but I got their names mixed up. Happens when you're watching a regional fight. So front kick attempt by Tibet. So now I'm getting the fighters right of who's who. Nice combination by Yates there. 347, 346 between Yates and Tibet right now. Spinning back kick attempt by Yates, misses. And still, Tibet still leaking out of his nose right now. He walks into a straight shot on that one. $322. 319, 317, 316. Yeah, very entertaining fight. It was very fast pace in the first two rounds. Now they're sort of slowing down a little bit, which obviously is quite normal in in a fight, especially when it's on the verge of going on a distance. I'm gonna have to give this one to Yates. Right. Obviously, I got them mixed up earlier in the fight. I was mixing up Yates with Tibet, but yeah, Yates, I believe, is winning this one. He's the one with the stance switches. He's the one that's going back and forth. And here we go. A straight shot attempt by Tibet there. Still bleeding out of his nose. $323, $223, $220. 219 left of the third and final round. And we're going to call it quits on the stream right here at the end of this fight. So low kick by Yates, connects. $143, $142. Little fake there by Yates. Sort of tries to lure him in. Still hitting him with the straight shots right now as we got about 120 left into the third round. $111, $110, $109, $108, $106. Head kick attempt by Yates there. I'm sorry, Tibet. Sorry, still mixing them up. All right, 46 seconds left into the third and final round. We're just going to find out who wins this fight, and we'll call it quits on the stream. $25 seconds left. Yates has a body lock on Tibet. Oh, I'm sorry. Tibet has a body lock on Yates. And a lackluster ending in what started out as a very fast-paced fight in the beginning of the first two rounds. And we end it with Tibet clinching up Yates on the fence. And that is the end of the third round. So let's find out who the winners are right here. And the judges are going to present the scorecards. So some of the highlights here, straight shots after straight shots by Yates. In the blue shorts, a little uppercut there, combination with a hook. And then pulls up his elbow sort of as a defensive mechanism. Yates, Tibet sort of wipes off the blood off his face. All right, let's find out the winner, and then we're going to call it quits right here, guys. All right, who is the winner of this fight right here? All right. And Yates wins this fight. All right, guys. So that concludes our live stream for today. Don't forget to check out Cage Warriors 168 Manchester, as we are also going to check out UFC Fight Night tonight. Tai Tuivasa versus Tybura. The first fight of the night is probably going to start for the UFC. Cage Warriors is going to continue on. Don't forget to like and subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you guys in the next stream and in the next videos to come.